where the WNBA All-Star voting is down by more than 2 million votes in total from last season. Her votes are down. A lot of people aren't happy with the product that they've been getting. So it comes at a really weird time. And I think Caitlin Clark has played her part in it. But overall, I think the WNBA has dropped the ball. The Indiana Fever and their front office have dropped the ball. Nike have dropped the ball, and we keep leaving out her agent, Erin Kane. I don't know what you've been doing. I don't know if you've been paying it.
One of the biggest missteps in recent memory from Nike and the 1BA together involves the handling of Caitlin Clark's signature sneaker rollout. With widespread agreement that they missed the peak of her popularity, raising real doubt about whether that momentum can be recaptured. Discussion opened around the idea that the delay was largely about avoiding backlash, particularly given that A'ja Wilson had also been vocal publicly about her own shoe not launching sooner.
I don't know if you've been paying attention to what's going on with probably, I believe, your most popular client, but I believe her agent, Erin Kane, has dropped the ball as well. And this has been the biggest fumble of a golden goose for a league that has needed a face and a superstar. Boy, did they do a great job ruining it.
Charles, do we think she can recover? Go ahead.
Let's go back to the first part of the question. I think it was
One panelist reiterated a long-standing position that Clark's signature shoe should have hit shelves before she ever played her first 1BA game, calling the delay indefensible, especially with all-star voting numbers reportedly down by more than 2 million votes league-wide from the previous season, alongside Clark's own vote totals dropping as well. The blame, in his view, extends beyond just the league. The Fever's front office, Nike, and even Clark's own representation, specifically agent Erin Kane, were all cited as having failed to properly manage this window of peak popularity for what should have been the league's signature star.
Part of the question, I think it was a bad miscalculation by Nike, and I think it's very, very safe to say that when she came out, and Maurice is right, that shoe should have been ready before she ever stepped on the WNBA court. Unfortunately, Nike's problem was the best women's player on the planet, who was A'ja Wilson, multiple-time MVP, multiple-time champion, one of their clients, but they had no shoe for her. And yeah, they
Asked whether that momentum could still be recovered, another panelist agreed it was a serious miscalculation, pointing out that Nike's dilemma stemmed from wanting to prioritize A'ja Wilson, a multiple-time MVP and champion, and arguably the top overall player in the sport, despite not having her own shoe ready either. The theory was that Nike assumed they'd release Wilson's shoe first to build momentum, then follow with Clark's, but that plan backfired. Clark then missed significant time with injury, and by the time attention circled back around, her popularity had noticeably declined.
One of their clients, but they had no shoe for her. And yeah, they figured they'd catch some backlash if they put that Caitlin Clark shoe out first. But they also thought, no problem, we'll take care of A'ja Wilson and get her shoe out. We'll build up a little bit more momentum, then we'll put Caitlin's out. And it's backfired on them because the momentum that Caitlin generated, well, you go into a second year, well, you can't do it this year because she was hurt all year. And now, as you said, the popularity has just gone down, down, down. And how do you get it back?
He also pointed to the broader context of that specific era, the women's Final Four generating far more national buzz than the men's tournament that same year, arguing that period represented a rare, once-in-a-generation opportunity that almost any brand could have capitalized on with the right timing. Another panelist agreed it was a poor business decision, but didn't believe it was accidental, arguing Nike likely felt confident enough in its dominant market position that timing mistakes wouldn't cost them much, historically speaking, a bet that ultimately didn't pay off here.
It's just gone down, down, down. And how do you get it back? I mean, her popularity, it was the perfect storm. That year, the men's basketball Final Four, when the women's basketball Final Four, was way more exciting than the men. I mean, nobody was interested in watching the men. I was coaching college basketball at that time. And I remember telling my friends, hey, man, watch this girls' Final Four. It's going to be way more exciting. And it was. And it lived up to billing. I mean, it was theater. It was drama everywhere.
Asked whether the excitement could be reignited, One commentator suggested that Clark may have miscalculated by signing with an already dominant, crowded brand rather than a company that would have built its entire strategy around her specifically, drawing a parallel to how Michael Jordan initially benefited from signing with a company that needed him as its centerpiece, rather than competing for attention against other established stars already on the roster. He argued a true reset might require a change of team environment altogether, not just more time.
It was theater, it was drama everywhere, and it had captivated the country. And you had this unbelievable force of nation coming in. You could have, anybody could have put a Caitlyn shoe out that time and gotten rich off of it.
LeVar Ball could have put one out.
LeVar Ball should have signed her up. It was a bad miscalculation by Nike. And was it intentional? No, because Nike's in the business of making money. I think that they were arrogant enough to think, let's go ahead and get this shoe out.
Another panelist picked up on that idea, suggesting a company fully dependent on Clark's success would have moved with far more urgency than one already juggling multiple established stars.
I think that they were arrogant enough to think, let's go ahead and get this shoe out so we don't catch any backlash from just jumping her over Asia Wilson. And then we'll put hers out and everything will be fine. And, well, you got to strike when the iron is hot. And they didn't do it. And that's on them.
Steve, do you think the fire could ever be reignited?
In the immortal words of Billy Joel, they didn't start the fire, and that is on them.
He argued that from a purely financial standpoint, it made no sense for a profit-driven company like Nike to delay releasing her shoe this long, suggesting internal pressure around equity and representation may have factored into decisions that otherwise defied normal business logic, resulting in what he estimated as hundreds of millions in lost potential revenue. Another panelist pushed back that this wasn't a miscalculation at all, but a deliberate decision. Essentially, the company chose to absorb financial losses to avoid public criticism, comparing it to broader corporate spending patterns around social causes in recent years, where companies invested heavily without expecting direct financial return, framing it as more of a symbolic gesture than a business strategy.
They didn't start the fire, and that is on them. And to Coach's point, he brought something up that I hadn't thought of. So you go back to Air Jordan and Nike. That came out the rookie year. You know why Nike could do that, though? All the best players are with Converse. I'm actually thinking maybe Caitlin Clark made a mistake by not going with the startup shoe. I'm not saying she had to go to Starberries or Pro Wings, but you talk about the political angle. If Michael Jordan signs with Converse, that means that now Converse has a...
Further debate followed about whether post players historically sell fewer shoes than guards, with one panelist noting that flashier backcourt players have traditionally driven signature shoe sales far more than traditional post players, arguing that prioritizing Wilson's release ahead of Clark's didn't align with historical sales data, regardless of on-court accolades. Discussion turned to statistical inconsistency in coverage, with one panelist arguing that Clark's shooting percentages get selectively highlighted depending on the broader narrative, ignored during hot stretches, suddenly emphasized during rougher shooting nights.
We absolutely do not think you're crazy. Just like you stated early on in the show, you stated that, the sports world is kind of down right now. And as right now, we all could admit the WNBA is very entertaining. Now, this saga that is starting to unfold between Tiffany Hayes and Caitlin Clark is a crazy one. One that unfolded in the last matchup, then carried over online. And so the drama that is leading up to this game is big. Now, the biggest question actually going into this basketball game is, will the Fever let Caitlin Clark play? Because the status...
Her career shooting numbers were cited directly. Roughly 34% from three as a rookie, 28% in year two, and around 32% this season, 42% from the field as a rookie, dipping to the high 30s the following year, and up near 40% this season across 66 games. One panelist argued that regardless of shooting variance, the broader point about commercial value and business decisions remains separate from on-court performance debates.
Status report came out last night, and Caitlin Clark is listed again as probable to possibly play tonight. Could this be a little damage control to not have a friction type situation in Golden State? I don't know, but I am super duper excited about this one, Jason. I ain't lying, dog.
Let me get a little towel. I think you just spit on me. Anyway, Maurice, Maurice, are me and John crazy here?
Well, Whitlock, I do believe you're crazy.
Comparisons were then drawn to other athletes' shoe deals, questioning why players with far less recent on-court success or off-court controversy continue receiving frequent new shoe releases, while Clark's has been delayed for years. One commentator called the original $28 million rookie deal with Nike a significant underpay relative to her cultural impact, comparing it to LeBron James' original $90 $100 million rookie deal decades earlier, and citing sneaker industry historian Sonny Vaccaro's recent comments suggesting Clark's brand entering the league was arguably bigger than Jordan's own coming out of college.
Are me and John crazy here?
Well, Whitlock, I do believe you're crazy. Where did you find these clothes? Did you get dressed in the dark? You must have bumped your head. I don't know what is going on.
Maurice, you don't know Morgan Wallen?
I do know Morgan Wallen, but Jason Whitlock having a Morgan Wallen wardrobe possibility in his closet is insanity. So from that standpoint, I do believe you're crazy. But when it comes to wanting to see the Clark show, oh, this is must-see TV. I don't care what's going on. Caitlin Clark, box office, must-see television.
The argument extended to suggesting Clark's camp should have negotiated far more aggressively given her cultural reach, particularly among suburban families and casual sports fans who had never previously followed women's basketball. One panelist offered a comparison to Sebastian Telfair's 2004 shoe deal with Adidas, questioning how a similarly sized deal could be offered to Clark decades later, despite a vastly larger platform and reach through social media and mainstream attention.
Caitlin Clark, box office, must-see television, and with all the hate and jealousy that is clearly permeating throughout this league for her, this has turned into not just a sport, but the best reality show in business. We got a bonehead coach. We got a dingleback commissioner that has no idea what she's doing. We got a girl that can't even make layups, for Christ's sakes, that thinks she's just as good as Caitlin Clark. We got all of the haters trying to prop up anybody they can.
Another panelist offered a more pointed take, arguing that more aggressive, assertive negotiating tactics, the kind typically associated with more combative representation, might have secured a larger deal, tying this to broader gender dynamics and high-stakes negotiation styles, while another panelist pushed back that ambition isn't necessarily tied to gender. A separate theory floated was that Clark's team may have been discouraged from pushing harder due to concerns about how a major marketing push centered entirely around her would be received by other communities within the sport, with one commentator arguing that no one on her team effectively challenged that narrative or advocated more forcefully for a bigger deal.
Up anybody they can to become a rival, a legitimate competitor, even if it means your one shining moment from a player named Tiffany Hayes that averages 5.5 points a game. This is the best reality show in sports, period. You are not crazy for that. I can't wait for the Clark show tonight.
And so, with that being said, I want to turn a bit more serious. Not that I wasn't serious about that, but I have reached the conclusion.
Others firmly disagreed with the idea that Clark lacked broad appeal across communities, pointing to first-hand experience seeing diverse, enthusiastic crowds, including plenty of black fans, men and women alike, showing up in jerseys and turning out in large numbers for her rookie season road games in cities like Los Angeles and Phoenix, arguing her appeal was rooted in an exciting brand of basketball that transcended demographics entirely. Later in the discussion, one panelist raised the question of whether Clark's value was actually being overstated, given reported contract offers, noting Nike's reported $28 million bid was the highest among bidders, with Under Armour offering around $16 million, Adidas around $6 million, and Puma reportedly walking away after offering just $3 million.
I want to turn a bit more serious, not that I wasn't serious about that, but I have reached the conclusion when Caitlin Clark came out and said, hey, look, I got a little mental issue as it relates to these injuries. I got some hangover from last year and getting beat up and hey, it gets in my head. And that's why she said that she maybe out of being way too cautious missed that game last week. And that to me is an indicator that, like, hey, and I say this affectionately, I mean, like, Caitlin Clark is.
Panelists pushed back strongly against the idea her value was overstated, with one arguing that a stronger, more assertive agent could have set a much higher market floor from the outset, similar to how sneaker industry pioneers historically built compelling business cases for other transcendent athletes. The suggestion was that Clark's team accepted offers rather than negotiating aggressively for more, unlike stars such as LeBron James, who directly demanded specific figures rather than accepting initial offers.
He is an indicator that, like, hey, and I say this affectionately, I mean, like, Caitlin Clark is a little crazy. She is probably on the spectrum a little bit. When you watch her play, she has a hard time controlling her emotions. And I'm not saying this to be hypercritical. I'm just saying it's the reality. Women suffer from anxiety issues. And why wouldn't you have a bunch of anxiety when you're carrying a league financially, doing everything in your power to grow the league and to make it possible for all the other players to make an abundance of money, and then they hate you. They turn around.
Another panelist raised the question of whether Clark's limited pool of major agency representation, given the relatively smaller scale of agencies representing top WNBA talent compared to larger crossover firms, limited her negotiating options from the start. Also speculate
an abundance of money, and then they hate you. They turn around and hate you, abuse you physically. And so it made me, when I heard Caitlin Clark say, like, man, as it relates to these injuries, I got a little mental problem, it made me sympathetic towards Stephanie White and the Fever organization. I think Caitlin Clark is, and not in a super negative way, but there's some difficulty with coaching her because she's under a lot of pressure. She's got anxiety issues. She's got some mental issues.
Anticipation was building ahead of a regular season matchup between the Indiana Fever and Golden State Valkyries, with extra attention on the recent friction between Caitlin Clark and Valkyries forward Tiffany Hayes, which carried over from their previous meeting and continued playing out publicly in the days leading up to the game.